Welcome to session number 25 of Genesis in Depth. I'm Dr. John McMath, retired more or less, sort of, from the Moody Bible Institute, and I'm joined here by my friends in Italy and in the Philippines as we study through the book of Genesis. This is one of a series of video collections uh, working our way through the entire syllabus of Bible and theology. We've got about about 4 years worth of video on Facebook and on YouTube, and we welcome those who are outside of our Filipino family who have been able to join us by YouTube or Facebook. Okay, today we're going to be in the end of chapter 25 and on into chapter 26, probably on into 27. We'll see how far we get today. I'm not entirely sure. I've been working ahead trying to get this all set up, and we'll see what happens. But today we'll be looking at Jacob. We make the transition really very briefly from Isaac to Jacob. Abraham is the first patriarch. We see him in quite a lot of detail over many chapters, and then Isaac is just introduced long enough to have him sacrificed on Mount Moriah, and he survives that. And then we see him at the end of his life in these chapters passing on the birthright to Jacob instead of Esau, and that story is worth looking at in some of its details. So that's what we'll do today. Jacob picks up here, and from roughly chapters 25 to 35, this is all about Jacob. Now, after the life of Jacob, we're going to go on to Jacob's son, Joseph. Joseph is also considered a patriarch, but he's the patriarch of the two tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh. He'll have two sons, and they'll each be a tribe. So Joseph is his own unique guy. So we've got all these tribes and the way they work out. For now, we're not going to worry about that. We'll walk through a bunch of that where it matters as we go on. Let's start the share. If I can manage this. Oh, let's see here. There we go. And we're going to share this one. See if it'll come. Bingo. Wow. Sometimes I impress myself that the thing actually works. Okay, so the succession from Isaac. This is the Toledo from Isaac. The term Toledo is often in our older translations translated, these are the generations of. It's a strange word. It's really not used a whole lot in the way that we see it here, but it should be understood as here is what comes from, or this is the story as it follows from Jacob or Isaac or Abraham or Esau. So we see the offspring of these characters. In the book of Genesis, there are 11 segments that we call the Toledo segments. This, I believe, is the 8th or 9th succession narrative. And these appear to form the basic organizational structure of the book of Genesis, although it's kind of hard to use them that way because the stories themselves don't fit quite right. So the succession from Isaac should be called the story of Jacob and his family, and that's where we're going here. The story picks up in chapter 25. Let me see if I can get my Bible up on this. All right. Now we saw a bit of this last time. The story of Jacob and Rebekah. They married, and their Rebekah was, of course, barren. She couldn't have children. So Isaac prayed, godly man that he is, and God answered that prayer with a yes. We see twins born. And the message is there in chapter 25 at verse 23, two nations are in your womb, two peoples from within you will be divided. The one shall be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. The point of that prophecy is that the elder brother, the first to be born, will not inherit the birthright. The younger will inherit the birthright. And something I want us to make a note of here. As Jacob and Esau are born, of course, Esau comes out first. Jacob comes out holding on to Esau's heel. And Esau is named Red because of his color. Jacob is named grasper. The word Yachav means to grasp, or he grasps. And this seems to be the characteristic of the life of Jacob. Even though in verse 23, God promised the elder will serve the younger. This infant, this newborn, before he was old enough to have done anything right or wrong, was already demonstrating a character trait. He was holding on to his brother's heel, trying to grasp his brother's privilege of being the firstborn. It's kind of a unique thing. It's an object lesson, and it shows us the nature of Jacob all through his story. We can see that Jacob has a predicted place in the outworking of God's covenant. The question of whether or not Jacob was a believer in the biblical sense is one that isn't as easy as you would think. I'm going to say yes, but we have to look at Jacob's life. If Jacob was a man of faith in any sort, if there was any faithfulness in him, it's hard to see. He often acts as though God was a surprise in his life. And that makes him, for me, it makes him an anti-hero. He's the Clint Eastwood kind of character who is not really a bad guy, but he's certainly not a good guy. Okay, so Jacob is definitely not an evil character, but he's certainly not a good guy either. He's an anti-hero. And we're going to walk through his story, and we'll get to see a lot of insights into Jacob's character as we walk from this. So, yeah, Jacob. As we walk through Jacob's story, we're going to find out that the covenant that God had made with Abraham, I will make your name great, I will bless you, you will live in this land, your offspring like the stars of the heavens, all of that, including the promise of the Messiah. Through you shall all the nations of the earth be blessed. This notion of the expanse of this gospel message reaching the ends of the earth to all of the nations is a promise that is initially made to Eve, but is renewed through Abraham, Isaac, and then Jacob. And we're going to find that Judah, the firstborn of Leah, or not even the firstborn, the secondborn of Leah, Judah is going to be the child of promise who goes on down, but not Joseph. So Abraham, Isaac, Jacob are the three in the line. And to them, this covenant is reiterated. I will bless you. When God said to Abraham, I will bless you, that includes the blessing of a relationship with God. So one of the things to remember about Jacob is that he is in the covenant succession. His faithfulness to the covenant often comes into question. But at the end of the day, God fulfills promises to Jacob out of his grace and his mercy. And so Jacob is one whom we will very likely run into in heaven. And I would love to hear his side of the story. I just wonder how much he's grown over the past 4,000 years. It's going to be interesting. Anyway, Jacob is going to go on. Let me get on to the next little bit here. Just looking at this transfer of the birthright. The where I really want to go, let's see, the transfer of the birthright uh, is in the last parts of 25 going on all the way down to 28, and it's a fairly long story. It's going to start out down here in the pasture and dry land, grain lands of southern Israel, the land around Hebron, or not around Hebron, but around Beersheba. And this photo was taken about 40 kilometers from Beersheba, a little closer to the coast today. You can see today that grain like wheat and barley grows on this land. It probably did not as much in biblical times, except for very close to the coast. So we've mentioned about Isaac. He's a transitional character. We see him just briefly. He's important. He is the only son in the Old Testament who is sacrificed by his father. So Abraham's sacrifice of Isaac is this unique object lesson. It's the promise of life from the dead, the promise of a resurrection, because Isaac is the long-awaited child of promise, and he is, in that sense, the type of Christ, the one sacrificed by the Father. So let's go on to the story about the chili. This is what I have here is a bowl of red. This is actually a Texas chili making contest, and this is a bowl of that chili from Texas. The term here, when the boys grew up, I'm beginning at verse 27 of chapter 25. When the boys grew up, Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the field, while Jacob was a quiet man dwelling in tents. Isaac loved Esau because he liked the wild game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. So the division in the family, there are plans and counter plans being made by everybody. Once when Jacob was cooking stew, Esau came in from the field and he was exhausted. Okay, the term stew there is a interesting word. It's not used any place else in the Old Testament that I can remember. It normally means a mixture of things, like like a mixed grill in the Middle East. If you go to Israel or Jordan or Egypt or those places, and you order a mixed grill, you'll get something that looks like this: a variety of meats with a variety of vegetables, with a sauce, and everything is stirred up together in a pan full of whatever oil is available, usually olive oil. You just stir that up until everything is cooked and fried and happy, and then you dish that out onto a plate with fresh vegetables like pickles and pita bread. And then you use the pita bread to grab a handful of that red stuff, and you eat that with cucumbers or other kinds of vegetables, and It makes for a good lunch. It's a very, very simple lunch. There's a lot of ways of serving this. It's a very basic thing. A lot of times in a Bedouin setting, a bowl of red will sit in the middle of the carpet, and everybody in the family will just gather around, uh, reclining on the carpet. Nobody will have a plate. They'll just use the pita bread, the round, soft pita bread, and drag off chunks and dip it in the bowl of red and use that to eat. It actually works very well. It makes a good lunch. And this is uh, what Jacob was cooking. He and his mom came up with this. Uh, well, not this time. Later on, mom is going to get involved. But I suspect Jacob understood about cooking. And Esau came in from the field, and he said to Jacob, "Let me eat some of that red stew. I'm exhausted." Literally, he said, "Let me eat some of that red stuff." Very interesting. For I'm exhausted. And his name was called Edom because he was a redhead. He was hairy all over with red hair, and he liked the red stew. So let me eat some of that red stuff. I'm exhausted. And so he's called Edom. And Jacob said, "Well, sell me your birthright." "I'm about to die," Esau said. "Of what use is my birthright?" He says, "Swear to me." So Jacob wanted to make sure that everything was done up nice and legal. So he made him swear to give away his birthright. This was a rotten thing for Jacob to do. The promise, remember, the promise has already been made. Jacob does not need to trick his brother. He doesn't need to cheat his brother out of the birthright. Esau will always feel as though he had been cheated. And Jacob will always feel like he's pulled one over on his brother and is therefore guilty. Later on, we're going to see Jacob confronting Esau again. Esau eventually forgave him because Esau went off and did his own life. But Jacob never really forgave himself. Uh, it's a fascinating story. So he swore to him, sold his birthright, and Jacob gave Esau bread, which would be pita bread, and lentil stew. The great mass of this stew probably would have been a red lentil, kind of a pea, split pea, and he ate and drank and rose and went his way. And thus Esau despised his birthright. So this is fairly important. Esau despised his birthright. He was, in fact, the son of Isaac, the son of Abraham. But to Esau, that really didn't matter. It wasn't particularly important. He wanted to go out into the woods. He wanted to live in the wilderness and hunt for wild game and enjoy that particular lifestyle. So there it goes. In chapter 26, as we're moving right along, there was a famine in the land, besides the former famine that was in those days. Now we're going to see a little bit of Isaac. And besides the former famine in the days of Abraham, and Isaac went to Gerar, to Abimelech, the king of the Philistines. And the Lord appeared to him and said, "Do not go down to Egypt. Dwell in the land of which I shall tell you. Sojourn in this land. I will be with you. I will bless you. For you and your offspring I will give all of these lands. To you and your offspring I'll give all these lands. I will establish the oath that I swore to Abraham your father. I will multiply your offspring as the stars of heaven, and will give to you offspring, or give to your offspring all these lands, and in your offspring all of the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws." Okay, we could spend a lot of time with that. We're not going to. This is the recitation of the covenant, virtually all the parts of the covenant that was given to Abraham is also repeated to Isaac. And it's the same set of promises. There's an emphasis in this passage on staying in the land. The land was an object lesson for blessing. The Old Testament is full of object lessons. So the stew is an object lesson of the rejection of the covenant, and the land itself is an object lesson for blessing. What does blessing look like in any individual's life? Well, it can be different. There's always something different. A blessing is not always financial or social well-being and prosperity and all of that. There are all different kinds of blessings. And God has a unique blessing for everyone, has a unique direction in life where you can find the fulfillment of God's purpose in that individual life. And sometimes our blessing includes the path of suffering. Isaac's blessing is going to include some suffering, but for the most part, we don't hear much about that. Jacob is going to be more so. It's going to be tougher on Jacob because he brings it on himself. So Isaac settled in Gerar. And when the men of the place asked him about his wife, he said, "She is my sister." For he feared to say my wife, thinking lest the men of the place should kill me because of Rebekah. So Isaac fell into the same error as his dad Abraham. Abraham did it twice. Isaac only did it once. The critics, of course, have always attacked these things. They say it's the same story repeated in slightly different packages, but it's really not. This is all of the details are different, every single detail. And we're not going to walk through all of that, but all of these details are different. It's just the way it goes. Note that the place that Isaac is when this promise is given is different than Abraham's place of promise, which is in Haran probably, or possibly even Ur of the Chaldeans. Isaac gets this reiteration in the southland, the southern end of the promised land, not too far from the present Philistine country of Gaza. We call that land the Gaza Strip, and that's where the war has been taking place over the past year and a half. Really, really a terrible thing. I have a lot of compassion for ordinary people in Gaza who have grown up with this monster government of Hamas. The word Hamas in Arabic means destruction. And they are such a destructive influence on everything they touch. It's interesting to me that gradually the land that God promised Israel in the Old Testament seems to be coming back into the possession of the modern nation of Israel. The outcome of this whole Gaza process will probably be the removal of the so-called innocent civilians to other Arab countries where they can start their lives over again. There's never going to be a future for them in Gaza, and they certainly won't be welcome in the general population of Israel after what they did. So they're just going to go. And that is this territory. The Israelis, I'm sure, will rebuild the area. They'll put up housing and hotels and resorts and shopping and manufacturing and agriculture, and everybody will be welcome to live there, including Arab and Jewish settlers into that area as it is rebuilt and revitalized. All of the old terrorist tunnels and the explosives and the rest will be washed out to sea, and they'll rebuild this. It'll take a decade or more, but the people who live there now are going to have to be elsewhere at least while this process is taking place. And I see God's hand in all of that. At any rate, this is the same spot. So we go back to the Philistines in Gerar, and uh, he's thinking the men of the place are evil because Rebekah is attractive in appearance. And when he had been there a long time, Abimelech, the king of the Philistines, looked out a window and saw Isaac laughing with Rebekah, his wife, which is something you just didn't do in that society except with your own wife. So Abimelech called Isaac and said, "Behold, she is your wife. How then could you say she is my sister?" Isaac said to him, "Well, because I thought, lest I die because of her." Abimelech said, "What is this thing that you've done to us? One of the people might easily have lain with your wife, and you would have brought guilt upon us." Now, why would one of the people, he's talking about the men in his compound, would have lain with your wife? Somebody might have raped her, and then we would have been in terrible trouble. You would have brought guilt upon us because she's a wife, not just a loose woman. So Abimelech warned all the people, saying, "Whoever touches this man or his wife shall surely be put to death." And again, this pagan Philistine, this genuinely godless individual, turns out to be more righteous than Isaac himself. He at least recognizes the truth and tells the truth. So Isaac sowed in that land and reaped in the same year 100-fold. This is verse 12. And he's staying here in the promised land and doing quite well. The Lord blessed him. The man became rich, gained more and more until he became very wealthy. He had possessions of flocks and herds and servants, so that the Philistines envied him. Now the Philistines had stopped and filled with earth all the wells that his father's servants had dug in the days of Abraham his father. And Abimelech said to Isaac, "Go away from us, for you are much mightier than we are." So Isaac departed from there and encamped in the valley of Gerar and settled there. Now, uh, we know that the Gerar is somewhere fairly far south. We know it's in the Negev. Uh, but frankly, we don't know exactly what the Valley of Gerar might encompass. It's somewhere down there in the Negev. And Isaac dug again the wells that had been stopped up, and he gave them the names that his father had given them. But when Isaac's servants dug in the valley and found there a spring of water, the herdsmen of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's herdsmen, saying, "The water is ours." So he called the name of the well Ezek, which means to argue, because they contended with him. Then they dug another well, and they quarreled over that, so he named it Sitnah, which is another word for argue some more. And he moved from there and dug another well, and they didn't quarrel over that one, so he named its name Rehoboth, saying, "For now the Lord has made room for us. We shall be fruitful in the land." So Rehoboth means fruitful. From there he went up to Beersheba. And at this point, we're going to get a renewal of the covenant, which is a pretty important thing. This has already come to Isaac, but we're going to hear it again. The Lord appeared to him, verse 23. And the Lord appeared to him that same night and said, "I am the God of Abraham your father. Fear not, for I am with you. I will bless you and multiply your offspring for my servant Abraham's sake." So he built an altar there and called upon the name of the Lord and pitched his tent there. And there Isaac's servants dug a well. When Abimelech went to him from Gerar with Ahuzzath his advisor and Phicol the commander of his army, Isaac said to them, "Why have you come to me, seeing that you hate me and have sent me away from you?" They said, we see plainly that the Lord has been with you. And again, uh, these guys are operating like honorable men. They are not the godless pagans that we so often visualize. And they said, we see that the Lord has been with you. So we said, let there be a sworn pact between us, a treaty between you and us. Let us make a covenant with you that you will do us no harm, just as we've not touched you and have done to you nothing but good, and have sent you away in peace. You are now the blessed of the Lord. So he made them a feast, and they ate and drank, and in the morning they rose early and exchanged oaths. This exchange of oaths would be very similar to the exchange that we've seen earlier in Genesis, where Abraham was told to prepare some animals, and he and God would make an oath, but Abraham went to sleep. This is very different in that Abraham and Phicol, or Isaac and Phicol, are making a treaty between their two forces of men, their two nations, if you will. And this is the way those were made. And it's going to involve the cutting of a covenant, and the giving of oaths, and the public explanations of of all of the bits and pieces. Uh, so he said, "Let us," Phicol says, "Let's make a covenant." So he made them a feast. They ate and drank. In the morning they exchanged the oaths. And Isaac sent them on their way, and they departed from him in peace. That same day, Isaac's servants came and told him about the well that they had dug, and said to him, "We have found water." And he called it Shibah. Therefore, the name of the city is Beersheba to this day. Now, this photograph that you see right behind my head is the entrance to the ancient city of Beersheba in the Judean Negev wilderness. That round thing with the grate in the top is the well. Now, the stones around the top have been, of course, replaced, but the ancient well was actually dug out. The archaeologists dug all the way down to the water table and found where the well actually is. Water sources typically don't change their locations. And so this is the well that Abraham's servants dug. This is the well that Isaac's servants uncovered. This is the well of Beersheba that gives this city its name. It's exactly the right place, and this is where Isaac was camped when all of this happened. It's actually kind of fun to be able to go to places like this and say, well, this has got to be it. This is actually genuinely, without any question, the place. This is the well of Beersheba dug by Abraham. This is it. And you stand in a place like that and reach out your hand like this young man is doing and say, wow, I'm reaching through 4,000 years of history right there. There, you reach out your hand and there it is. Fun thing to do. So that's what they do, and it's called Sheba, and the name is Beersheba to this day. When Esau was 40 years old, where we've got a little change of direction here, he took Judith, the daughter of Beri the Hittite, to be his wife, and Basemath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, and they made life bitter for Isaac and Rebekah. So this is the end of chapter 26, and the message here is that everything is bitter for Isaac and Rebekah because of Esau. Esau turned out to be a typical Arab Bedouin tribesman. The multiple wives is the way it was done in the wilderness. The nomadic peoples to this day still have the same customs. That has been true in the Arab nation forever. Uh, to some extent, this has expanded into other parts of the world that are today Muslim, uh, because Islam picks up that cultural distinctive. The multiple wives, what we call polygamy, is very common in the desert economy. Uh, it's only the biblical culture that suggests that it is improper to do anything besides a monogamous marriage. The idea of the marriage of one man to one woman for a lifetime is genuinely a unique biblical take on life. The story goes all the way back to the beginning. In the beginning, God created man in his own image, male and female. He created them, and the two were designed to spend a lifetime together and be fruitful and multiply and make a family. And that's the biblical pattern. Modern people are no different than ancient people in always looking for an alternative to the obvious ideal situation. Oh, I think we can make it better. Let's have 7 wives. Or I think we can make it better. Let's all us guys pretend to be women, and then we can. I, I don't know why that's an advantage to anybody, but there they go. Um, the various alternatives to God's plan almost never work very well and never, ever result in God's blessing. If you want to be right in the center of God's blessing arc, uh, try putting together a life that matches the pattern that God has promised to bless. I'm going to bless you. I'll make your name great. And you just do that. So stay in this land that I've given you, he says to Isaac. And Isaac did, and there he was blessed. And it just works that way. Uh, so, chapter 27. We're going to make a little traffic today here. We've done the covenant to Isaac. That's good. Let's get on to the blessing. This is a Bedouin encampment. This is what they actually look like when you're out in the desert. You come up upon one, and they just pop up here. There's actually 2 separate encampments, probably uh, related families. And the tented area here will have uh, quite a number of different spots for people. And you've got actual family. There'll usually be an elder who is the patriarch of this entire family group. He'll be the grandpa or great grandpa. His sons and all of their wives and all of the grandchildren will form the compound. Sometimes a son will decide that he wants to separate because the group is getting too big and he wants to start off another one. And that will be that next set of tents off in the distance. That will be a son of this particular grandpa who has decided he's going to start his own encampment. And now he's taken his wives and his children, and they're starting another encampment off in the distance. And that can work. It's an entirely different social model. It's not the biblical model. But very, very often in the Old Testament, we're going to see people living this kind of extended family, if you can call it that, model of dwelling in tents out around the edge of the desert, just like this. And that's what we're going to see Isaac doing in the Beersheba era at the time of Isaac. The Negev wasn't quite like this. This is farther south, is well into the Sinai, but the wilderness aspect is important. So Isaac was old, 27-1, and his uh, eyes were getting dim so that he couldn't see. He called Esau, his older son, and said, "My son, here I am." He said, "Behold, I am old. I do not know the day of my death. Now then, take your weapons, your quiver and your bow, go out in the field, hunt game for me, prepare for me delicious food such as I love, and bring it to me so that I may eat, that my soul may bless you before I die." So Isaac's intention, despite the prophecy of God, is that Esau come back and receive the blessing, that is the inheritance. So at this point in life, Isaac is ready to pass on the property that he has gained and the household that he is the patriarch of. Uh, Not such a good thing. Uh, so go out and do this. But verse 5, Rebekah was listening. So Rebekah is going to hatch a plan here. She was listening when Isaac spoke to his son Esau. So when Esau went to the field to hunt for game and bring it in, Rebekah said to her son, "I heard your father speak to your brother Esau. Bring me game, prepare for me delicious food, that I may eat it and bless you before the Lord, before I die. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice as I command you. Go to the flock and bring me 2 good young goats, so that I may prepare from them delicious food for your father, such as he loves." So Rebecca is going to make the goat taste like whatever bushmeat they would catch out in the desert, gazelle or something. I don't know what's out there. There's a variety of quite a wide variety of wild animals who live in the wilderness. Now therefore obey my voice and go do this. And you shall bring it to your father to eat, so that he may bless you before he dies. But Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, "Behold, my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. Perhaps my father will feel me, and I shall seem to be mocking him, and bring a curse upon myself and not a blessing." And his mother said, "Let your curse be on me, my son, only obey my voice, and go bring them to me." Okay, so Mom Rebecca is up to her eyebrows in this plan to acquire the blessing by deceit, by deceptiveness. Uh, uh, this doesn't say anything good at all about Isaac and Rebecca's relationship. Uh, when we can't be honest with one another about the important things, the things that really matter, like the inheritance, uh, there's something really wrong. Maybe you'll disagree, but you still need to work that out. And here, Isaac and Rebecca should have expressed themselves to one another, should have come up with a compromise uh, on at some level. They should have been able to work this out, but they didn't, and the result of that is conflict. Uh, the way it kind of works. So he went and took them and brought them to his mother, and his mother prepared delicious food, such as his father loved. This will be savory food. It'll be something pretty spicy. Uh, take goat meat and the various vegetables and peppers and whatnot, and olive oil and pita bread, and it'll be a good meal like that bowl of red at one time. Probably a little more meaty than that. So he prepared delicious food. Then Rebekah took the best garments of Esau, her older son, which were with her in the house, and put them on Jacob, her younger son. And the skins of the young goats she put on his hands and on the smooth part of his neck. So Esau must have been one magnificently hairy young man. Because if a goat skin would fool Isaac, and she put the delicious food and the bread, which she had prepared, into the hand of her son Jacob. So he went in to to his father and said, "My father." And he said, "Here am I. Who are you, my son?" Jacob said to his father, "Here comes the lie. I am Esau, your firstborn. I've done as you told me. Now sit up and eat of my gain, that your soul may bless me." But Isaac said to his son, "How is it that you found it so quickly, my son?" And he answered again. This is the way lies work, by the way. You tell one lie, and you're immediately caught in a contradiction because you haven't covered all the bases, and it's something you didn't even think of. And so Jacob answered very quickly, it's because the Lord your God granted me success. And Isaac said to Jacob, "Please come near, that I may feel you, my son, to know whether you are really my son Esau or not." What was Isaac suspecting here? He's expecting a trick. Does he know the character of Jacob and Rebekah? I think so. I think so. So Jacob went near to his father, Isaac his father, who felt him and said, "Well, the voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau." And he didn't recognize him because his hands were hairy like his brother Esau's. So he blessed him. He said, "Are you really my son Esau?" He answered, "Oh, I am." So Jacob the liar, what a guy. And then he said, "Bring it near to me that I may eat of my son's game and bless you." So he brought it near to him, and he ate, and he brought him wine, and he drank. Then his father Isaac said to him, "Come near and kiss me, my son." He came near and kissed him. Isaac smelled the smell of his garments and blessed him and said, now we have the actual blessing itself. "Behold, the smell of my son is as the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed," like good, clean dirt. "May God give you of the dew of heaven and of the fatness of the earth and plenty of grain and wine." So the dew of heaven, rain in its season, of the fatness of the earth. The word fatness there is used a lot in the Old Testament. It means the abundance. May the grass be abundant for your flocks and herds. May your garden produce plenty of vegetables and grains to make your food. Plenty of grain and plenty of wine. So there should be vineyards for you. And all of this will produce prosperity. That's the way the blessing goes. "Let peoples serve you, and nations bow down to you." Oh, no, that's interesting. The blessing here from Isaac implies that Jacob's people will eventually become a powerful people and will have rule over their neighbors. That won't happen until the time of David, but it will happen. "Be lord over your brothers. May your mother's sons bow down to you." Now, the brothers, here is a reference to all of the offspring thus far. So this will include uncles. So Ishmael and the sons of Keturah will be uncles to Jacob and Esau. So the thought is all of them will bow down to you. And if this had been Esau, the blessing meant Jacob will bow down to you. But in fact, Isaac is here blessing the wrong son, and the message becomes the elder will serve the younger. Exactly like God had planned. And yet Jacob is achieving this victory at the expense of his lies, his deception, his his untruthfulness, his unfaithfulness to his own father. This is actually a terrible thing because God would have blessed him anyway. Just, that was the promise. Let the people serve you and nations bow down. Be Lord over your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be everyone who blesses you. Okay, so some elements of the Abrahamic covenant now translated into the gift of the inheritance. Everything that Isaac has accumulated comes down to Jacob rather than Esau. Now, so Jacob departs stage left, and behold, Esau approaches stage right. So the whole scene changes here. Here comes Esau. As soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, when Jacob had scarcely gone out from the presence of his father, Esau, his brother, came in from his hunting. Now this is so theatrical that you wonder if this is exactly the way it happened. I suspect it really was, but because the timing is about right. Nevertheless, this is just picturesque. It's exactly right. And Esau, also prepared delicious food, brought it to his father. He said to his father, "Let my father arise, eat of his son's game, that you may bless me." And his father Isaac said to him, "Who are you?" He answered, "I'm your son, your firstborn, Esau." And then Isaac trembled very violently and said, "Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me, and I ate it all before you came? And I have blessed him. Yes, and he shall be blessed." Now, there's some elements of this we don't entirely understand because this blessing was obtained by deception. In a modern court of law, it could be argued that no contract made under the shade of deception can be honored. Uh, Apparently, in the Bedouin culture of the time, and we don't have anything to back this up except the text itself, but in the Bedouin culture of the time, apparently, if you deceived someone and received the inheritance, then that would have to stand. At least in this case, it is Isaac's judgment that this can't be changed. And as soon as Esau heard this, verse 34, he heard the words of his father. He cried out with an exceedingly great and bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me, even me also, O my father." But he said, "Your brother came deceitfully, and he has taken away your blessing." Esau said, "Is he not rightly named Jacob? For he has cheated me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and behold, now he has taken away my blessing." Then he said, "Have you not reserved a blessing for me?" And Isaac answered and said to Esau, "Behold, I have made him lord over you, and all his brothers I have given to him for servants. And with grain and wine I have sustained him. What then can I do for you, my son?" Esau said to his father, "Have you but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father." And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. This is seriously, this is a sad story. The deception is clear. Isaac apparently can do nothing about this. Esau piteously begs for a blessing. So verses 39 and 40, we get a blessing. And such a blessing. Then Isaac his father answered and said to him, "Behold, away from the fatness of the earth shall your dwelling be, and away from the dew of heaven on high. By your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother. But when he grows restless, you shall break his yoke from your neck. When you grow restless, such a uh, that's a half-hearted blessing. That's a backhanded blessing. You're going to live away from the fatness and the dew of heaven. Now, look at this Bedouin camp that you're in. Does that look like the fatness and the dew of heaven? No, this is actually a pretty bad place to live that they're in. It can be magnificent. The sunrises are beautiful in the desert, and it can be a magnificent place, but it's definitely not a place where you'd look for the prosperity of flocks and herds and abundant agriculture. It's rather a wasteland. This is the kind of place that Isaac had been living, and now Jacob and Esau were inheriting. And it's going to end up that uh, Esau will live in a worse place than this. The land that we call Edom is essentially a desert. Just right across from the Sinai Peninsula, all the way down to the edge of Arabia. It's a land where nomadic peoples have lived forever, and virtually none of them can be called prosperous in any sense. So that's Jacob's blessing and Esau's blessing, and because of this, verse 41, what goes around comes around. Now Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing with which his father had blessed him. And Esau said to himself, the days of mourning for my father are approaching. Then I will kill my brother Jacob. That's how these things work. But the words of Esau, her older son, were told to Rebekah. It would be really hard to keep a secret in a camp like this. And then I will kill him. Okay. So she sent and called Jacob her younger son and said to him, behold, your brother Esau comforts himself about you by planning to kill you. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice. Arise, flee to Laban my brother in Haran, and stay with him a while, until your brother's fury turns away, till your brother's anger turns away from you, and he forgets what you have done to him. Man, this is this is such a sad story. This is a tragic story. Rebekah and Isaac have allowed their own relationship to deteriorate to such an extent that this thing has come upon their sons. This is the breakup of the whole clan, and is really terrible. It will be roughly 20 years before Esau and Jacob see each other again. This is sad. So Rebekah goes on, I will send to bring you from there. Why should I be bereft of you both in one day? And Rebekah said to Isaac, I loathe my life because of the Hittite women. Okay, all those Hittite women that are apparently around the area. If Jacob marries one of the Hittite women like these, one of the women of the land, what good will my life be toward me? So in chapter 28, we're going to get Isaac sending Jacob off to Padan Aram to find a wife. And that's where Jacob's solo story begins. We'll come back next week and have a look at Jacob's trip back to the old country to see what's going on in the land of his ancestors in Padan Aram. And until then, hey, it's been fun. I'm going to make the share stop so that we can talk, and then we're going to unmute everybody that wants to. All right, thank you all for coming today. It's good to see you, Oscar. I think I saw Roger in there somewhere, and Teresa's in there. Okay, and I see Mark. All right. Good to see everybody. We'll see you again next week. Go out there and be a blessing. Just like God told Abraham. You just walk before me, and you be a blessing in your community, in your church, in your family, in this world that God's given us. That's ultimately what the story is all about. All right. God bless everybody. Good to see you again.
Thank you,
Bye
Dr.
bye.
John.
Ciao, ciao.
Yeah.
Love
Ciao.
y'all. Bye bye.
Get
Ciao, ciao.
Mr. Donald.